So transforming your desk into a productivity zone does not happen overnight. And procrastination, by contrast, offers predictable pleasure with minimal effort. Some of you may be thinking, this sounds so primitive. Let me share one incredibly practical piece of advice about productivity that may completely transform your work habits. When people ask me, how do I stop procrastinating? Or how do I actually get work done at my desk instead of wasting time? Or just generally, how do I stay productive? And when I'm sitting at my desk, how do I make sure I actually do the work instead of just scrolling on social media? I always point to this fundamental principle that most people don't know about. The problem and the solution is that your brain remembers places and situations and programs them into your brain so they start working on autopilot. Let me explain how it works. Our brains are incredibly powerful at forming associations between locations and behaviors. And this is both our greatest advantage and our biggest problem when it comes to productivity. Think about your desk at home that serves as your home office. What happens when you sit down at your desk? For many of you, I had the same problem as well. The ritual likely goes something like this. You open your laptop and there they are. Those tempting YouTube tabs you left open in the browser from yesterday. Articles and a bunch of different websites open in your web browser. You may even have multiple windows of web browser with different categories of stuff open in there. Or maybe you immediately check social media for a minute before starting your actual work, or check your emails just for 5 minutes, just to stay up to date and see what's going on. Perhaps you decide to quickly answer a few non-urgent emails or texts on social media or messages, or browse some news sites. So what's happening here? Your brain has formed a powerful association, which is desk or sitting at the desk, and immediately procrastination. Every single time you sit at your desk and begin the same procrastination ritual, you are strengthening this neural pathway that is already formed in your head through repetition. So your brain is literally learning that this is what we do here. It's creating this habit loop that becomes more compelling and more difficult to break with each repetition. And our brains are incredibly good at maintaining these habit loops. They're like efficiency machines that are designed to automate behaviors, which is good because it helps you conserve mental energy so you don't have to think about those behaviors. It kind of works on autopilot. So once your brain has learned that your desk is where you watch YouTube videos before working or browse LinkedIn or X, it will actually push you toward that same behavior every time you sit down. This is why willpower alone often fails us when we try to go against this habit. You're not just fighting the momentary distraction, you're fighting against a neurologically reinforced pattern that your brain considers normal and expected behavior. So to understand how to fix this problem, we need to explore why our brain works this way in the first place. Your brain contains neural pathways that strengthen with repetition. So when you repeatedly perform the same action in the same context, your neurons fire together in a specific pattern. And as neuroscientists say, neurons that fire together wire together. So each repetition deepens this neural groove, making the behavior even more automatic and requiring less conscious thought the next time. An example of this is after driving the same route to work hundreds of times, you can sometimes arrive at your destination with almost no memory of the drive itself because your brain was operating on autopilot. It's kind of leading you there. And the same principle applies to your work desk. If you've established a pattern of sitting down and immediately checking social media or emails or watching YouTube videos, your brain has created a neural pathway that automatically triggers this behavior. Sometimes you don't even think about it. Your fingers are moving on autopilot. So it's not a conscious decision anymore, it's a programmed behavior of your brain. And these associations form through a trigger behavior reward loop. So the trigger is sitting at your desk, the behavior is watching YouTube video, email, procrastinating basically, and the reward is the dopamine hit that you get from the entertaining content. And your brain loves these predictable behavior patterns, and it works really hard and tries to do everything in its power to preserve it. And what makes this especially challenging is that procrastination activities typically provide immediate gratification, while work usually offers delayed rewards or delayed gratification. So your brain naturally favors immediate rewards, so it steers you toward checking social media, which gives you instant dopamine, rather than starting the difficult project, which will be fulfilling and satisfying later. And additionally, your brain hates uncertainty and effort. Starting meaningful work often involves both the uncertainty of whether you will succeed and the mental effort you need to put in. And procrastination, by contrast, offers predictable pleasure with minimal effort. So this isn't just a matter of poor discipline. It's literally your brain functioning exactly as it was designed to. Now, the good news is once we understand these mechanisms, we can redirect them to work for us rather than against us. So the solution here is to work on rewiring your brain's association. The key insight here is that we don't need to fight our brain's tendency to form habits. We need to leverage it by creating new productive associations with our workspace. So let's break down a practical approach to transform your desk from a procrastination zone to a productivity space. First of all, very easy, very actionable. Create a clean slate for your laptop, especially your browser. So the first tactical step is to eliminate any visual triggers that prompt procrastination. So clean up your browser environment completely. So you are starting from a blank browser page. So nothing is jumping at you and reminding you, hey, watch this, open this tab, read this email, and so on. So close all non-work related tabs before ending each workday before the next day. And set your browser to open with a blank page or your main work tool, whatever that is, like a task manager or to-do list, rather than restoring previous sessions. You can also create separate browser profiles, by the way, so you can have one for work with work bookmarks and extensions and another one for personal use. Something that I have used because I love watching YouTube videos, usually for educational purposes where I learn a lot, but it kind of becomes a rabbit hole. So really cool hack here is you can install a browser plugin that when you type in YouTube, it actually gives you a blank page. So it hides all the YouTube suggestions plus the suggested videos when you're watching something. So if I need to learn something specific and I'm researching and I'm searching it on YouTube, I just type in, platform engineering or some specific technology, and I watch that YouTube video, all the comments are hidden and all the suggested videos are hidden. So I'm only focused on that one thing and it hides all the distractions. Also important to remove social media and entertainment bookmarks from your browser profile. So this will create a clean digital workspace every time you sit down at your desk. And your brain will no longer receive that immediate visual cue that says, time to watch videos, as always. I have this myself. So I'm literally using my past example, and I'm sure I'm not the only one here. So I installed a plugin, a browser plugin, it's called Unhook. So it hides all YouTube recommendations and comments because I would see all these business videos for learning 1,000 things and would have an urge to watch them. And even though it's learning, it's still disruptive when I have a specific task to complete, like recording a video or writing a script for this video, for example, instead of watching one. And I planned specifically times to watch those videos if I want to learn something, but it's proactive and not reactive when it pops out on my YouTube home screen. So I see a blank page when I open YouTube if I'm doing a research on some engineering topic or I want to learn something new. So I have no distraction and no suggested videos in the bottom corner either, because learning can also be a rabbit hole and a distraction from actual task. So I suggest you to install some kind of browser plugin like Unhook. Also, a huge productivity hack that I have is put your phone on silent and put it in your bag or out of sight in another room. Trust me, this could be probably the simplest but most powerful productivity hacks. So as you see, most of productivity is not about adding some Pomodoro techniques and productivity hacks and tips and tricks. It's actually about removing the distractions first. So cleaning up the current environment before you can start adding additional productivity hacks onto it. So hygiene first. Second is physical separation of your work desk. And this is absolutely essential because your work desk must become a sacred territory, basically, where only work happens, nothing else. Again, we're trying to tap into that power of association. A desk with a work laptop on it means no watching movies there, no watching fun YouTube videos, no playing video games, just work, which means you should have a separate place where you basically do all this stuff. So now on a practical level, this is what would happen. You sit down, you feel the urge to check social media, watch YouTube videos, engage in any non-work activity. And initially, when you're first trying to break that habit that was already programmed so strongly in your brain, this urge will be the strongest. So when that happens, you literally physically get up from your desk and you move to another location. Want to scroll on Instagram or LinkedIn? Go to the couch. You want to check your personal messages like WhatsApp and Instagram messages? Move to a chair. If you like watching YouTube, again, move to somewhere else. So physically get up from your desk and just separate the place where procrastination happens from the work. And this physical separation creates a clear boundary in your brain. You are explicitly teaching your neural pathways that desk is work, couch is leisure. And again, realistically, very realistically, at first, you might be getting up very frequently because every 10 to 15 minutes, you will have that urge of procrastination because that's what you've been doing for a long time. So that's what brain expects. And it will be reminding you constantly like, hey, do you want to watch that YouTube video? You sure you don't want to check the Instagram messages? So you may literally have to get up and go somewhere else every 10 to 15 minutes. And that's completely normal and actually part of the process. And each time you move away from your desk to procrastinate, you are reinforcing the association that your desk is only for productive activity. So do not skip this part. It's very important. So what happens is over time, these patterns will strengthen. Your brain will begin to automatically shift into work mode when you sit at your desk. And the procrastination or relaxation mode when you move to your designated leisure spaces like couch or living room or whatever. The third one is the step-by-step habit building process. So transforming your desk into a productivity zone does not happen overnight. So here is how to implement this as a strategy, as an effective strategy. The first week, we can call this awareness and immediate action phase, which means you notice your urges to procrastinate without any judgment. You just become aware that this is happening because that's how your brain works. And the moment you feel pulled toward a distraction, you physically get up and move to your designated procrastination zone. After satisfying the urge, scrolling through social media, even if it's for half an hour, because I know, again, that's your brain forcing you an older habit, without judgment, return to your desk and work for at least 10 to 15 minutes. And repeat this as often as necessary, even if you're moving back and forth very frequently. Week 2, this is a very important phase. We're now extending the work session because our goal is to make sure that we can stay in a focused work mode for a longer period of time. So we continue this physical separation practice and we challenge ourselves to work for 20 to 25 minutes before taking a break. So we extend that focus time. without doing anything in between. And I know this can be hard for many people if you don't have a discipline to do this yet. So we are building that discipline now, building those neural pathways so they can work for us on autopilot instead of against us. You can use a timer. You can literally write Google timer for 25 minutes to maintain focus during these short work sessions. And when the timer ends, you can decide if you want to take a break or you can continue with another work session. And again, if you need a break, physically move away from your desk. You need to be strict here because this is a phase where most of the hard work is done. The week 3 is going to be strengthening the work association. So we built the foundation, now we want to build on top of that and strengthen the foundation we've laid out. So we're gonna gradually increase the focused work periods to 30 to 40 minutes regularly. And remember, this is a habit, just like building a muscle. Remember, we're building and strengthening those neural networks so that our brain can start doing this on autopilot. That's the goal here. Not to get the most output done right now, but reprogram our brain to get used to sitting at work without checking social media and being distracted. One thing which is a really powerful productivity hack, so to say, to help with this process is you can create a consistent starting work ritual as a trigger that would signal to your brain that it's time to focus right now. And you can use this same ritual, exactly the same steps, right before you go into the focus work. And this might be arranging your workspace, taking a few deep breaths, or getting a coffee, for example, or reviewing your task list or to-do list. Something that is simple, but you make sure that it's consistent. So you always perform this specific ritual, maybe 2 or 3 steps even, consistently every time you sit down right before your focus work. So your brain remembers this ritual is a trigger for the behavior that follows, which is focus work, and then you get the reward, which is you feel proud of yourself, you've achieved something, you should feel like you've laid another brick in building this autopilot program in your brain that helps you by default focus on tasks instead of by default procrastinate. Week 4. In week 4, we're gonna capitalize on our new neural pathways. So by now, you should notice that your brain automatically shifts into work mode when you sit at your desk. So we have created that program that always runs on the same trigger. And your urges to procrastinate at your desk should be becoming fewer. So we're gonna leverage this by planning your work in focused blocks with intentional breaks away from your desk. And you can pat yourself on the shoulder and reward yourself for the progress in order to enforce this positive behavior. Some of you may be thinking, this sounds so primitive. Like, is this how primitive our brain is and how it works? And I have to do all this basic stuff so that I can do focused work without being super easily distracted. It may be even embarrassing to think that you need to do all these primitive tweaks and twists so that you can even do a proper work instead of scrolling social media all day. And it is super primitive. However, it is also very powerful. So first of all, don't be embarrassed. That's how literally our brain works. And second, here's an interesting fact. Some of the greatest people, including one of my absolute favorite ones, Victor Hugo, they struggled with disciplined, focused work as well, which is crazy to think about because these were some of the greatest people and they struggled with the same issue. And they used the same type of primitive productivity hacks in order to do the work. So Victor Hugo, for example, had his servants hide his clothes to prevent him from leaving his desk during writing hours. That's how desperate he was to avoid getting distracted. And he didn't even have social media to distract him back then. So we have it way harder in our age. Another example is Anthony Trollope, another famous writer. He would force himself to write for a strict schedule every single morning before his day job at the postal service. So he would just sit there and write during his designated time even when he had zero inspiration. He just did the same thing every single day to train his brain, so eventually it started working on autopilot. Ernest Hemingway, another great one. He did the same thing. He was obsessive about writing every single morning, regardless of whether he felt inspired or not. This man would literally drag himself to his desk and just stay there in these dedicated writing hours, even if he had nothing to write. And one final pretty extreme example is Graham Greene. He basically committed to writing exactly 500 words daily, not 490, exactly 500. And he would literally stop mid-sentence when he hit that number. Again, to train this habit and to fixate this habit in his brain. That's how serious he was about building that habit. So it sounds like they were all aware of how their brain worked and used very simple, very primitive tricks actually to stay productive. They weren't fighting against their brain's nature, they were working with it, creating these really specific conditions and habits where their brain had no choice but to associate sitting at the desk with doing the work. So this isn't about having superhuman willpower or discipline. It's about understanding how your brain forms habits and then setting up your environment and your daily schedule to work with that process instead of constantly fighting against it. Which leads me to these tricks to trick our primitive brain even more as very practical implementation. First of all, design your environment for success. Keep your desk clean and organized because physical clutter contributes to mental distraction, just like your browser having hundreds of open tabs. And also remove physical distractions from your workplace. Put your phone in another room if necessary, all your gadgets away from your work desk, and have only work-related items visible on your desk. The second one is to create a starting routine. So develop a consistent sequence of actions that signal work mode to your brain. This could be as simple as getting water, sitting down, taking 3 deep breaths, reviewing your top 3 priorities, and then opening your primary work application. So that chain of small steps will basically be a trigger for now it's time to work. And perform this exact sequence every single time to strengthen that neural pathway in your brain, to make the association stronger. The next one is use time blocking effectively. So schedule specific chunks of time for deep work, clear boundaries. And I do this all the time. And during these blocks, commit to staying at your desk and working on your planned task. No other task, no content switching, no getting up and doing something else. After completing a block, you can take a break and return to your desk only when you're ready to work again for another block of time. And to make this easy, you start with very short, very small blocks, 10 to 15 minutes, and then gradually increase them. Do not try to do 1 hour deep work if you've never done more than 15 minutes of continuous uninterrupted work. And last one is this 2-minute rule. So when you first sit down, commit to working for just 2 minutes. This tiny commitment will literally bypass your brain's resistance mechanism that tells you now it's not time to work, it's time to procrastinate. And once you start, the momentum after 2 minutes will often take over and you will continue working much easier. This is a very important one. Manage your energy, not just your time. Energy management is just as important as time management. This means you can schedule your most demanding tasks during your peak energy periods. If you are the most active and energetic in the morning, that's when you do your most demanding task. If your energy slowly builds up during the day, so for example, I am probably the most productive in the evening because I actually get a lot of energy during the day. Sometimes I schedule some demanding tasks in the evening. And on the other side, save your lower energy periods for more administrative work that doesn't require a lot of cognitive effort. And recognize when you genuinely need a break versus when you're just seeking distraction because you don't want to do the work and you just want to procrastinate. Now, I want to mention that most productivity advice that I've personally consumed failed because they ignore how our brain fundamentally functions. We're told to just focus or have more discipline, just get to work, without addressing the underlying mechanism that is literally driving this behavior. Like the physical separation approach works because it aligns with your brain's natural tendency to form those contextual or context-dependent associations. Rather than fighting against your neural architecture, you are basically just redirecting it or reprogramming it. Now, some of you may be thinking, this sounds amazing, but I have this issue and this excuse. So let's go through some of them. Challenge number 1. It sounds great, but I only have one space in my home for everything. I live in a studio apartment in New York City. The rent is too expensive. So how do I create that physical separation? Well, even with limited space, you can actually create contextual boundaries. So you can use different sitting positions or changing the lights or rearranging the desk slightly when switching between work and personal activities. Again, our brain is actually pretty powerful, but it's also pretty dumb. So it's easy to trick our brain with this type of small things. So the key is creating distinctive environmental cues that signal different modes to your brain. It's like, now we're in a work mode, now we're in a play mode. Challenge number 2. I start strong with full motivation, but I can't maintain it. Well, this usually happens when people try to do too much at once, when they attempt too much change at once. So the goal is to focus on consistency rather than duration at the beginning. So it's better to maintain the desk work association for 10 minutes consistently for 2 weeks than to attempt a 3-hour session that completely collapses into procrastination. Because no matter how challenging or how difficult a task is or a habit is, you can always break it down to the smallest, the easiest chunk that you can do, that you have enough willpower, enough discipline, enough work ethic to complete. So it just goes back to starting with smallest, easiest tasks to start building that association and then slowly expand and build on it. Whenever you have a problem where you say, I started, but I couldn't stick with it, it means that small task was just too much for the level that you're at. So you just need to simplify it or take a step back a little bit instead of giving up completely because you couldn't stick to it. Challenge number 3. What about necessary breaks? Now, planned breaks are actually different from procrastination. So you can actively schedule intentional breaks away from your desk and then return when you're ready to work again. And this maintains this workplace association while also acknowledging that you need some periodic rest and breaks. And this is a big one. Challenge number 4, my work requires me to use social media. I literally have to post on social media or I use social media for my work, multiple channels. Well, this is actually an easy one because you can create designated professional social media times in your schedule. And during this period, you're not going to be procrastinating, but purposefully engaging with these platforms as part of your work. The key difference here is intentionality versus mindless scrolling. So you have to ask yourself, am I producing something like, engaging in the comments or posting a new social media post or even doing some analysis? Or am I just mindlessly consuming social media? And again, the trick here is to make it as simple as possible. So break it down into small tasks. What is it exactly that one task that needs to be completed in this session, which is I need to post on LinkedIn, right? I need to release an Instagram reel or whatever. Once the task is completed, the task is done. And that's it. There's no reason for you to keep being on that social media channel. Challenge number 5. This could be related to mental switch, which is I get anxious when attempting to do focused work. And this is very common and often rooted in fear of failure or perfectionism. And you think, what if I'm not able to sustain it? What if I'm not able to actually produce proper work? So you put too much pressure on that session or on that work itself. So the key here, again, going back to simplifying and making things simple so that we can stack up those wins. Literally start with tiny work sessions, even if it's just 5 minutes of uninterrupted work, and gradually build it up. Think about it exactly the same way as going to the gym. right? If you're weak, if you've never trained in your life, you don't go and lift the heaviest weights, right? You start with 5 kilos or even smaller, and then depending on how much you can actually lift or how many reps you can do of a certain exercise, you gradually increase the number, right? And you see the progress over time because your muscles get trained and become stronger and stronger after every exercise. And that's exactly what we're doing here, but on a brain level, on a more abstract level. So the physical separation technique actually helps with this by creating a clear escape space for anxiety. So you can always get up and move elsewhere if you need to. And once you're ready to work again, you come back to your work desk. Now, if you think about it, it's probably one of the most important things in your life, because if you solve this, it won't just improve your productivity, it will improve your overall relationship with work. Your desk will become a place where you feel focused and capable rather than distracted and guilty and shameful because you just sat there for 3 hours and you didn't actually do anything productive. And the huge byproduct of this, work will become something that you can fully engage with and enjoy rather than something that you are constantly trying to escape and you're dreading. So by deliberately designing distinctive environments, different separate environments for work and fun or creativity, exercise, social connection, the beauty of this approach that I explained is that you can begin immediately. You don't need preparation time, you don't need this strategy and planning time. You can literally start right now, not tomorrow, like right now, because that's simple. And you can follow these steps. You clear your browser tabs and bookmarks bar of any distractions right now. You identify your dedicated procrastination zone somewhere away from the desk where you can escape if you don't feel like working. You can start using a timer, set a timer for your first focus work session and start with just 5 or 10 minutes. Like that's it, that's your minimum. It's easy, it's doable, and it will still help you to get there. Commit to physically moving away from your desk for any non-work activities to start building that habit and contextual association. You basically just do this over and over and over again to lay the foundation. So we're basically rooting out this old habit of procrastination and we're planting this new one in its place. We are strengthening it and nurturing it by repetition every single day, every single hour. Keep iterating over it. And once we have that foundation, then you can just gradually start extending your focus sessions and reducing your procrastination or distracted sessions. And that's it. Just do that over weeks and months, and you will see a huge change without having to rely every single day on discipline and willpower and basically just feel miserable over days. And very important to remember, do not worry about perfection, especially at the beginning. This is about progress, small steps of progress, and gradually rewiring your brain. So every time you maintain the boundary between your work and procrastination, you are going to be strengthening that productive association. So start today, start right now, and your future focused self will thank you and probably me as well later. I wish you all the best, and I want you to share your wins and your transformation in exactly 1 month, which should be enough time to actually see some real impactful results. So cheers and see you in the next video.